Hello and welcome to Nautilus TV. I'm Deborah McPherson, web editor at Nautilus International. Today we're going to hear all about a new initiative called the Seafarer Pledge, which aims to recognise and celebrate seafarers and which Nautilus is also pleased to support. With me today are Sharon Coveney, the Deputy Chief Executive of the Merchant Navy Welfare Board, and maritime consultant Stephen Jones. Welcome, Sharon.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having us today, Deborah.
And welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Lovely to be here and to have a talk about the Seafarer Pledge.
Excellent. Well, let's start with the Seafarer Pledge. Who's going to go first and tell me what is it?
I can do that because I first bothered Sharon with the idea way back in February 25. So I am involved in an organisation called the Propeller Club in Liverpool, and we were approached about signing the Armed Forces Covenant, which we went to a wonderful meeting. It was all explained, and I was wholly supportive, and we signed up, thankfully. And then, of course, you kind of reflect back on these things and note that it's a bit of a shame that seafarers aren't involved in that, and there's no kind of recognition of the Merchant Navy or the role of seafarers, and it just seemed to me a little bit of a missing part of that particular jigsaw. I understand why it exists as a gap in that, but equally then I approached the Merchant Navy Welfare Board and said that I felt there was an issue. Did Sharon agree? She thankfully thought the same, and then we've been able to progress from there to this point.
Right, and you've got sort of 5 pillars, is that right, that you're basing this on board? Can you describe more about them?
Yes, certainly. So the pledge is built around 5 practical areas where organisations can make a difference, really. These are improving seafarers' welfare, strengthening employment and career pathways, supporting transition between sea and shore roles, promoting recognition of maritime skills and experience, and increasing awareness of the value of seafarers.
Right. And who is the Seafarer Pledge aimed at? Is it retired mariners and their families, or still working serving seafarers, or all of them?
All of them. We purposely left it as broad and inclusive as we could. It's about recognising the whole seafarer family, so to speak, and the community rather, and it's designed to sort of reflect the full circle. So from cadets all the way through to retired seafarers, and their experience from entry to retirement, and to make sure that recognition doesn't stop really once someone leaves or goes from sea to shore, really. So the full transition of a seafarer's life cycle, so to speak.
If we get this right, and if we are able to increase awareness and that recognition, celebration of the value of seafarers, very hopeful that it will also have an impact on future seafarers. So all of a sudden those messages, careers at sea doing a great job, but that we all do suspect that sometimes the message isn't heard loudly enough in society of the importance of seafarers. So, if we get the message right, if we get the energy behind it, then all of a sudden the message of a young person seeing a ship and understanding what that is and what the roles could be for them as well. So very much, past, present, but also future seafarers as well, we hope.
No, you don't want things to be too prescriptive at this stage. After all the roundtables and surveys that you've had around this pledge, how do you envisage the pledge to work in practice for seafarers?
As Stephen said earlier, the inspiration was taken from the Armed Forces Covenant, and in terms of creating a shared national commitment. And we've been very conscious of the learning points from the Armed Forces Covenant, and its strengths and also its limitations, really. So that we've deliberately, with the Seafarers Pledge, is designed to be a lighter touch, and more flexible, so to speak. So it's not about setting entitlements or creating sort of a compliance system, so to speak. Instead, it's about encouraging organisations to take practical, whether that's small steps proportionate to the size of the organisation or their ability, really, and then really reflect on what they've done.
In essence, in some ways, this is a kind of, it's a moral compass in many respects. And of course, as soon as you get away from the rigidity of laws, regulations, and of compliance, then, the needle can move slightly on that moral compass. So what we want is basically a direction of travel. We want everyone to be moving towards that, having said that, we pledge to, and then follow the kind of the words, the message of that, but translated in myriad different ways because so many organisations are different. A small company that looks to employ seafarers is going to think about it differently to a huge insurer or a publisher or a shop or whatever that might be. So it's just us starting to corral everyone around an agreed sense that seafarers have value, we need to recognise them, and this is the way that we are going to do it as this organisation or as this person supporting it. So we really didn't want to be too kind of rigid and restrictive to stop people coming on that journey with us. But hopefully, as we come along and we start to develop best practice and see what people are doing that succeeds, then all of a sudden everything shakes out and people are moved along and the messages are amplified and accelerated. So if you have services and you are so minded to make, reductions or whatever, or different services for seafarers, then fantastic, do that. But there's a lot who won't. If you are employing potentially seafarers, is your HR team aware of the skills that come from seafaring? Are you open to lessons? Are you able? It's about what you're willing and able to do. And as we say, we're open to such a broad kind of spectrum of initially the maritime industry, then it's impossible to actually second guess what people might say. And, I think there'll be 100 different brilliant ideas that different organisations come up with as to what their Seafarer Pledge actually translates into. So that's really what we want to do. The freedom to explore and have some kind of self-expression, but all having committed and pledged to make sure that seafarers are front and centre.
Right. And of course, in the UK, we have the Seafarers Charter, which is a mandatory agreement now of standards for seafarers between the government and maritime operators, and it's coming under the Employment Rights Act. And this is going to, guarantee more fair wages and proper rest periods, working conditions for maritime workers, and that's kind of like practical legislation, workplace recognition. How do you see that sitting with the Seafarers Pledge?
I think, like as you said, Deborah, so the Charter governs the fairness at work, really pay, conditions, employment law, whereas the Seafarers Pledge addresses something no existing framework really addresses or touches on, is the recognition part and the dignity and visibility of seafarers in the public domains, so to speak, and the reliance that we as a nation have on seafarers, be that UK or international seafarers. That sea blindness has been around for a long, long time. And I know organisations individually, collectively, are doing their own thing to raise awareness, but I think what's different with the pledge is getting everyone, or as many people as possible together, which is likely to accumulate in a louder voice. So pledge values them in society, whereas the Charter protects seafarers.
So this isn't about being compliant with something, it's about compassion, really. And that's the big missing part, I think, and where we hope and see that the pledge fits in with everything else that's being done.
Sure, that's a really good point. But I guess that brings me to the fact that there are a lot of initiatives and pledges that are kind of washing around the maritime community. How do you think you can avoid duplication? And considered that during the various roundtables and surveys?
We've conducted a lot of gap analysis in depth. I was just looking, it ran to 18 pages, the gap analysis. So there has been, enough research done. And exactly as you say, the last thing we would ever want to do is to step on the toes, destabilize, delegitimize that which already exists. So if it's working and if it's delivering, then absolutely. But equally, there was felt that there was this absolute void in this wider kind of piece about the human recognition of seafarers, the rush to AI, the talks of autonomous ships, etc. We're living in a world which is probably more militarily conflict strewn as it's been for a long time. And there's not enough talk of seafarers, the value and the importance of what they bring, certainly to an island nation. And so if we don't talk about the value, if we don't recognise, then everyone just goes off, the skills get lost, and all of a sudden you wake up in 10 years' time and you haven't got any seafarers left at all. So it was felt that this can be a really important part of really closing the loops that we were losing, that touch point with seafaring through supporting seafarers.
Yes, and obviously there's a lot of synergy between those aims and those of a union like Nautilus, which is a cross-boundary maritime union. And of course, we hold representation via our trustees are on the Merchant Navy Welfare Board with our own senior officials. So there's a lot of cross-party talks, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember, Deborah, when in the process of this, myself and Stephen got together and we formulated like a project brief, really, a project proposal, which first and foremost went to MNWB's board, which of course includes two representatives from Nautilus International. And when it was put to the board, they were unanimously supportive of it and agreed that they would like to part fund it. We were very keen. We could have approached MNWB and asked for all the full funding for the pilot project, but we were keen to get other organisations on board, and M&A there, as Ken said this morning at the webinar, is aligned to the mission. A lot of it aligned to raise recognition of seafarers and Merchant Navy. So they were very on board. And then I spoke to Trinity House, Vicky Muir at Trinity House. She was very, very enthusiastic about it. And I met with a couple of people from Trinity House to really discuss the potential to collaboratively fund the project. And from there, it borne through. So MNWB agreed to part fund, and then M&A and Trinity House. So to have that early support from those organisations was really, really reassuring, because we're very keen to do a collaborative project. M&A and also Nautilus are members, so it's just reassuring to have that support. I can imagine some people are thinking, what do we have to do? And we're not going to sign up until we know what we have to do. But like you say, there's some people who are not quite sure what we really like the idea, really want to support it, we want to get on board, sign up. But from our point of view, we're not asking people to tick things what they're going to do before they've signed up. So it's about sort of the way we communicate that is very important, that, like you say, Stephen said, that they don't necessarily have to know now what they want to do. They can work on that and also look at the experiences of other organisations and develop and evolve.
We look forward to hearing more and seeing how it all develops.
It's a real pleasure, and thank you for the support and the chance to discuss.
And thank you for your support, Deborah, and thank you to Nautilus International.